marks Holocaust Memorial Day, 70 years after the war. A look at past, present, and how history may repeat itself across the globe. In the fourth week of a major Saudi-led campaign against Iran-backed rebels, the UN envoy to Yemen quits, while the conflict becomes a political juggling act for Washington. An increasingly familiar scene in Jerusalem. One person is killed and another seriously injured when a car rams into a bus stop. The Israeli police now believe the incident is terror.
The News Today with Lucy Aharish.
Good evening and welcome to the News Today. As every year, Israel's today marking Holocaust Memorial Day, this time 70 years since World War II. As always, sirens sounded at 10 a.m., bringing the country to a literal halt for 2 minutes of silence. Afterwards, life goes on, but on this occasion, on the show tonight, we take a look at past, present, and how it will all be seen decades from now. There's a sentence every Israeli is raised on to remember and never forget. But history seems to repeat itself even as we speak. With me to help and to take a look at the greater picture and if in any other way why humanity is once again ignoring reality is analyst and former Israeli ambassador to France, Daniel Sheikh. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. And also Sudanese asylum seeker in Israel, Mu'tasim Ali. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. You know, I want to start with you, Mu'tasim, because this day specifically is a day that we're talking about human lives. This day specifically is a day that everyone is asking themselves, not only Jews, but what is the value of life? You're coming from Sudan, I think, the country that the world likes to ignore. And you're coming here and you're seeing what you're seeing from far on a Western perspective, and still it's ignored.
Right. First of all, I would like to thank God and Israel for having me, welcoming me in Israel, first of all. Not to be harmed physically at all, because if I wasn't Darfur, I wouldn't survive anyway. I pay my tribute to those who have lost their lives during the Holocaust 70 years ago. And as we cherish or honor those who cherish the Holocaust, we need to remember to use the lessons of the history to prevent the coming genocides, to prevent the happening genocide until today. I'm coming from a region that is going through a genocide until today, and is being called one of the under humanitarian emergencies since 2003. It is sad that nobody's talking about what is going on in Darfur, because people are being killed every day. The moment I'm speaking to you, women, men, and children are being persecuted and killed just because of who they are, not because of what they did. And I think the world doesn't think about, they don't talk at all about what is going on in Darfur, and it's really sad. And I'm using this opportunity to urge the international community to act to protect people of Darfur, because they're really suffering. And part of the reason why I'm here is that I'm fleeing indeed genocide, and I'm here to bring the voices of innocent civilians in Darfur. You know,
Ambassador Sheikh, one of the maybe most amazing things that we saw an example of, and I like to bring this example each and every time since Charlie Hebdo happened and since the terror events happened in Paris, is that at the same week 2,000 people were killed in Nigeria, and no one from the world leaders did any parade in Nigeria. And you know, it's hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy for us to, in one way or another, to stand today 2 minutes, maybe all over the world, on Holocaust Day, and International Holocaust Day, and to pay our respects to human beings who lost their lives, and to promise that it will never happen again. And it's happening each and every day. It's happening in Sudan, it's happening in Nigeria, it's happening in Syria, it's happening it happened in Rwanda, it's happening each and every day, and we are silent. we are not doing anything. But only when it comes to our doors, to the West, we're starting to be shocked by what the value of human life is really low. How come?
Look, I agree with most of your premises in your introduction. I'm not sure I agree with your conclusion. I don't think that the fact that terrible tragedies and injustices happen every day and are overlooked by the international community, which is shocking, as you say, does not mean that we should not still fervently commemorate the great landmarks of human injustice, hatred, cruelty. And there are a few of those landmarks in history which need to remain as sort of pillars of memory. So memory does not have necessarily to do with the future, because, you know, I'm glad to hear that Mutasem, who is a young person, a young man, still believes that humankind learns lessons of history. The truth is that it's not true, because if we did learn lessons of history, there would be no wars, there would be no social injustice, and there would be no genocide.
How come? How come? Ambassador Sheikh, how come we didn't learn?
There are forces that are
history
stronger than the sense of justice and of humanity inside the human being, and I'm no psychologist and I'm no sociologist to explain it scientifically, but clearly there are forces that make us forget all these sentiments of humanity, and just we overcome it, and then we go right ahead and kill each other and do terrible injustices. There were genocides since the Holocaust that we are commemorating today, 70 years ago. We can get, you know, the fingers of my two hands won't be enough to count them all. In Africa and Rwanda and Darfur and Muslims in the Balkans and Kurds and Christians in the Middle East, and you name it. There are all sorts of systematic acts of violence and of murder that are committed against certain groups of people simply because of their religion, the color of their skin, their tribal origins, you name it. Human beings always find a reason why they should kill the others, why they should feel superior towards others.
Yeah, but you know, I agree with you 100% and with everything that you said. And of course, there are some points in history that we should mark, and we should keep it as a big, let's say, milestone of humanity. But when I'm talking about hypocrisy, I'm talking about our hypocrisy, because we are learning and studying about this, and yet we're not doing anything against it, because we are human lives. We are crying about the value of humanity, the value of human lives, and we're not doing anything to prevent the killing in Darfur, to prevent the killing in Rwanda.
Some are doing, but certainly not enough. There is the humanitarian aid, but there is no, you're right, there is no massive international mobilization in order to put an end to these things. And not that I'm sure that I have the tools exactly how to do this, how to prevent the next act of racial or national injustice. But it's flagrant that we are not doing enough, and that not only are we not doing enough, we are, and you said this, at least in the Western media, there is a huge amount of undercoverage of these events. The international media like to focus on a certain number of crisis centers which have become rooted in the minds of people, and they will not open doors to new ones. How many of the great international media have systematically covered the acts of violence in Sudan and in Darfur?
Exactly. From this war, it exists since 2003, right. And it's there. I figure that you are talking with people from Sudan. You have connections, and do you see anyone learning from the past, or any progress, or somebody's doing anything there to stop this war?
I think one of the problems that I'm sure that a lot of people don't understand what is going on there. The problem in Darfur particularly is not just about genocide and ethnic cleansing. It's about changing the identity of a region at all, because Sudanese government, al-Bashir and its regime are systematically trying to eradicate and change the demography of Darfur. In fact, most of Darfuris are either refugees or displaced, and they brought some other residents from neighboring countries. They took the lands of Darfuris, and the idea is just to change the identity of the country. And they're using different tactics to change this. Using rape as a weapon for genocide and ethnic cleansing, using food as a weapon for genocide and ethnic cleansing in the people of Darfur. And the media is not talking about that at all. They focus on different issues that are not very serious. And one of the problems is that I think the international community, they're part of the international community supporting Sudanese regime in committing those kind of crimes. And as people of Darfur and people who survived genocide, we need to knock the doors of every country, all the world. And I think Israel is a part of the international community. I mean, I know the values of Jewish and I mean, Israel is sometimes treating even the wounded from the hostile states during the wars, and I think they can give opportunities to Darfuris and others who fled genocide.
So they say that charity begins at home.
Yeah.
This is not a matter of charity, but I think the first thing for the Israeli government to do is to recognize its responsibility in taking care of the refugees who came from these areas.
I want to talk about exactly this, and I want to talk about even Israel not recognizing the genocide in Armenia, which is just right now. You know, a lot of things that are contradicting to the state of Israel and why it exists. But let's take a look back, and let's take a look while we look at the present and future of the hundreds upon hundreds of stories out of the Holocaust. One is of Yaakov Guterman. Here's his experience.
My name is Yaakov Guterman. I was born in 1935 in Poland. I was living in quite a small city called Plock. I had a very pleasant and a very beautiful and a very charming childhood, but so short, just 4 short years. Till, of course, the Germans occupied Poland in 1939, and then the hell started. The life started to be very sad. You could see it on the faces of your parents, on the faces, on the eyes of people who surrounded you. During the first months of the occupation started bloody terror against the Jews, and we were thrown out to the ghetto. Of course, everybody had to earn the yellow star. It was terrible. And March, the 1st of March, 41, they took all the population of the Jewish population of the ghetto. They sent to the concentration camp Soldał, Działdowo in Polish. It was terrible. This terrible night I will never forget. And then they sent us to the eastern part of Poland, and the life was very hard. So this was the time that my father took from the floor small pieces of paper, and he was sitting days and nights and writing a documentary book about what the German Nazis are doing to the Jewish people. He made from this very tight, narrow rolls with a string, putting it in a big bottle of more than 1 liter, taking me by hand and hiding those bottles. In a very, I would say, mystical way, he believed that I will survive the war, and my duty was to find one of the bottles and publish. One of the bottles was found just by a I don't believe in miracles, but it was found in a very miraculous way. I am more than happy than even one of the bottles was founded and published, and many people in the world are reading it. The value of the book is not because this is my father, but it's really a wonderful book. It was a terrible danger because it was forbidden for the Jews to write and to draw and to make photographs and to keep any evidence about the German crimes. And to do it, you had to be or crazy or a hero or both of them. And I think my father was both of them. It was for him very, very, very important.
You know, Ambassador Shaka, I just want to welcome Ayman Siksik here in the studio with us. And, you know, these stories today, I had a discussion about this in one of the studios in Israeli media. And I said, you know, people are looking at it sometimes, of course, especially here in Israel, it's the one event that brings everyone together. And yet again, here today in Israel in 2015, we have the discussion that if the Mizrahi Jews are part of the Holocaust or not part of the Holocaust, if they feel that they can actually commemorate it with the Ashkenazi Jews. And inside Israel, you also have the Israeli Arabs. And the Israeli Arabs that find it maybe hard to understand, to identify. And what I try to explain today is that, again, it's not only the problems of the Jews. 60 million people were killed in this war. 60 million people, 60 million human beings. And this is something that I don't understand. Why, when it's such a big human problem and human loss, Israeli Arabs cannot identify with that?
Well, Lucy, I think there are several reasons for that. Namely, in my personal experience as a student who grew up in an Israeli Jewish school, to me today, it seems like this is a problem of PR. How the Holocaust is communicated and marketed to Israeli Arabs. I remember my first visit to Yad Vashem, the museum where the victims of the Jewish Holocaust are commemorated. I remember being horrified. I remember feeling extremely sad and shocked by what I saw. And at the end of that visit, one of the teachers from my school told me personally, this was a teacher I loved, she told me, maybe now you, and she meant you as an Arab student, you understand why Israel is important to the Jewish people. Now, back then I didn't understand, I didn't really grasp this comment, but today it seems to me like a pivotal problem in how the Holocaust is communicated in Israel. It's often used as a political tool. It's often used in a way that distances, as you said, people who even are Jewish but are not of Ashkenazi descent from the conversation. It seems like certainly Arabs, but also Mizrahis, are not allowed to grieve, are not allowed to mourn the Holocaust. I would like to mourn the Holocaust too. I think it's an awful human tragedy, not just a Jewish tragedy. But the way it's communicated in Israel, especially to Israeli Arabs, does not allow us to do that.
Do you agree with that, Natasha?
I mean, I just don't want to involve in the complexity of Israeli society and the problems there. But I just have a problem of how the media deals with the genocide all over the world, because I see in different places, for example, recently in Syria, there's really a serious problem, and every media and all the Western countries are focusing on that issue, but they neglect what is going on in Darfur today. Really, nobody's speaking about that, no media coverage at all. Nobody's interested to talk about the genocide in Darfur. But at the moment I'm speaking to you, a lot of people are being displaced. Like just this year, more than 300,000 people or 500,000 people are being displaced. And the killing is taking place every time, every day, every hour. And it's sad that nobody's speaking about it, and I think that's indeed a problem, and that's why I have to...
When politics gets into the business, it, in one way or another, takes the discussion, or maybe takes the human discussion from it, takes it out and put it in a really, really low point.
My view is very simple about this. I completely reject the connection that is widespread among certain political and circles, but not only in Israeli public opinion, that totally links the creation of the State of Israel to the Holocaust. And I'm saying this as the son of survivors. If the state had been declared 15 years earlier, would have known all his grandparents, his uncles and aunts. I had none of those. Both my parents were the only survivors of their families. Very simple. And I say this clearly. The State of Israel, the right of the Jewish people for national independence, does not emanate from the degree of suffering it has had to withstand during the Holocaust. It is a natural, universal right of peoples to have their own national identity. And that is the same reason why I support the right of the Palestinian people to national identity. And it is not because they have suffered a Nakba or because they are suffering occupation. It is their natural and universal right. And I completely agree with Ayman that once you integrate this into the political debate in Israel and you put the Holocaust as a pivotal point of the right of Israel to exist, it certainly excludes certain circles in Israeli society, certainly Israeli Arabs, who cannot identify in the same manner with the Holocaust. They can have empathy, they must understand. There's no reason why they shouldn't understand. Here you have somebody who says, I want to be part of it. But how can you be part of it if it's the root cause of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which I reject? It is not. That is not the reason.
So let's, 25 after the genocide in Rwanda, on the line is joining us from Kigali, Rwanda, is Christian Gakombe, Christian Gakombe, a Rwandan journalist who has traveled the country documenting the victims of Rwandan genocide. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes.
Christian, do you feel that 25 years after, anyone learned anything from history?
Repeat again.
I'm asking if do you feel 25 years after that anyone understood or learned anything from history, from the genocide in Rwanda?
Yeah, definitely, because I'm part of the Rwandan diaspora because I was born in DRC Congo, and then we came after the genocide. In 2003, we returned in Rwanda, but I had some relative who was born here in Rwanda. People learn about after the genocide because now I can see there is more progress in society. Can you imagine for the former regime, President Habyarimana, and there was neglected one ethnicity, Tutsi, and then no one can be successful in high school, no one can have a scholarship, and then now I can satisfy, we have one identity, we are all Rwanda. This is, I can see on this generation, this is booming Rwanda, we are free, working, it's safe, no one can ask you, what is your identity card, who are you, which ethnicity are you from. I can see there is a lot of making progress in society.
How do you commemorate this genocide in Rwanda each and every year? Do you feel that the world is actually looking or, let's say, giving it the attention that it should give it just 25 years ago?
No, I can say now the commemoration this year it was 21 years ago, and I can see we still, because it's just early. I can say 21st after the genocide, we still have survivors who are recovered. They are traumatized, but I can see because the government support them. Youth attend school, you know, and then you can see the wounds, you know. It starts the healing in the process. And what I can mention, when we commemorate, we remember, you know, what's happened in the past, and then I can feel, you know, there is a healing process.
Yes,
we cannot forget. We cannot forget what happened. We still remember, but we are rebuilt in some way.
Yes, Christian Gacombe, thank you very, very much for this. I wanted just before we're finishing, and we have 2.5 minutes, and I really want each and every one of you a short answer. Do you think that in 25 years, or in 50 years, when we won't have any more Holocaust survivors here in Israel to tell the story, or around the world to tell the story, this Holocaust will be forgotten or will be treated in a different way? Or maybe some other Holocaust that we're talking about today in the headlines will take the headlines of the commemoration in the future?
I think that every genocide has its specialty, its uniqueness. And the Holocaust is unique in its scope, but also in its systematic mechanism that brought it about, the ideological background, the historic background that sort of came together in these 10 dark years of the Nazis to bring about the most systematic industry of murder ever known. That doesn't mean that there isn't room or an obligation for each people to commemorate and to keep the unique character of their own suffering.
Two things that I want to say. Before we speak about 25 years later, I think the war must act to stop the genocide is taking place today,
right
and
now.
then we think of 25 years later. One more thing is that international community must act to protect the people of Darfur. Al-Bashir is wanted by International Criminal Court, and they must arrest him. As Darfuris in Israel, we are commemorating the genocide in Darfur by 20th of this month in April here in Jerusalem by next Monday.
Yes.
Monday, and I'm inviting everyone to participate in that event.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't have enough time for you, but I welcome and I ask our viewers to go and read your columns about this. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with me. We're going out for a small break, 2 minutes, and I'll be back. As Israel marks Holocaust Memorial Day 70 years after the war, a look at past, present, and how history may repeat itself across the globe. In the fourth week of a major Saudi-led campaign against Iran-backed rebels, the UN envoy to Yemen quits while the conflict becomes a political juggling act for Washington. An increasingly familiar scene in Jerusalem. One person is killed and another seriously injured when a car rams into a bus stop. The Israeli police now believe the incident is terror. Welcome back to the news today. The UN's envoy to Yemen resigned today as fighting continues between a Saudi-led coalition and Houthi rebels. This comes as former Yemeni strongman Ali Abdullah Saleh is seeking safe passage out of the country. Eli Ochenberg has the story.
As Saudi-led airstrikes on Yemen enter their third week, it seems the situation is heading towards a turning point. Saudi sources says the military campaign has thus far been successful, having destroyed most of its primary targets, and that the kingdom is now preparing to enter the second phase of the operation. The new focus will be on more specific targets and missions. The possibility of a ground operation is still being considered, with Egypt and Saudi Arabia planning a joint military exercise.
We are hoping that our people in Yemen will understand, and the casualties that happened already here now, that will not be, it will be more if it happened on the ground.
As the game plan changes, it appears the other side is beginning to take stock of the new situation. Former Yemeni President Ali Abdullah Saleh, who is said to be aligned with the Houthi rebels, has asked Gulf Arab states to grant him and his family a safe exit from Yemen. Sources told Al Jazeera the request of Saleh, who was forced to step down in 2012 after a wave of protests against his rule, was rejected by Saudi Arabia. All the while, the United Nations has once again failed in its effort to end the fighting. The UN envoy to Yemen, Jamal Ben Omar, has resigned. No successor has yet to be named, but it's certain the person will have many challenges to overcome.
Iraq's prime minister put his U.S. ally in a precarious situation yesterday when he requested American weapons to fight the Islamic State, and in the same time denouncing the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen, which Washington supports. Analysts view the exchange as an example of the geopolitical complexities in the region, in particular as regards to Iran's growing influence and the U.S.'s attempt to balance its own interests. And to understand this whole mess, with me is defense and government analyst for Haaretz daily newspaper. Good evening, Amir Oren.
Lucy, good evening.
Okay, let's try to understand. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Iran, U.S. Try to put some order if you can.
Our region used to be so simple. You had Iraq between Syria on the left and Iran on the right. They were rivals, Iraq and Syria, and Iraq and Iran. Sometimes they fought each other. Other times there were similar conflicts. Saudi Arabia wanted to control the Gulf. Now it's similar, but it's different, because Iraq and Syria together are part of what the Islamic State, ISIS or ISIL, is fighting over. The American-led coalition, which includes Arab as well as Western governments and forces, is fighting in Iraq, in Syria. It is making ISIL withdraw from some quarter of what it took over. At the same time, as you mentioned, in Yemen, the other part of the American-led coalition is fighting for other interests. But there is a common denominator
Which
in all
is?
of this. The Washington strategy is to aspire to a stable region. Failing that, at least some stable units within the region.
What stable region? What are the Americans
The
talking
least-
about?
the least-
There is no stability
Of
in the
course.
region. The only stable thing is Israel, and also the relationship with the United States is not that stable.
That's true, but the ideal is to have a totally quiet and peaceful region. This is not achievable, at least to avoid a breakup of the entire regional system. For instance, the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, in the Persian Gulf or Arabian Gulf, led by Saudi Arabia, and to avoid American involvement by ground troops. This is the other aim.
Until when they can continue all this juggling around with all the Arab nations all around, and to say,
You know,
we want this, we want that, we are sitting with you in Lausanne, we are not, we are sitting with you, we want your oil. Until when?
They used to come out with new studies, Middle East 2025, 2030. This is 10, 15 years down the road. They can't even see 10 days down the road. So they're trying to play it by ear. And if they have to fund Iraq by to the point of $1.6 billion and give it weapons and give it aerial coverage, fine. And if they can't, they will ask someone else to go in and fight.
Amir, you're saying that they cannot see 10 days ahead. They cannot see the weekend ahead. Amir Warren, thank you very, very much for
Thank
this.
you.
And we're going back to Israel. A young man was killed and a woman critically injured yesterday in Jerusalem when a car rammed into a bus stop. Police are investigating the possibility that the incident is the latest in a series of similar terrorist attacks. Shai Ben Ari explains.
It's a scene that has become all too familiar in Jerusalem. On Wednesday evening, 2 people were run over by a vehicle that crashed into this bus stop near the French Hill neighborhood. 25-year-old Shalom Yochai Shirky died early Thursday from wounds sustained in the incident. He was laid to rest this afternoon at a Jerusalem cemetery.
We have the same information everyone has. A car deviated from its path and rushed towards a bus station. This scenario has almost become usual nowadays in Israel.
Another 20-year-old woman was seriously injured and remains hospitalized.
Shira came in last night in a critical condition. She was stabilized by a team of neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, spine surgeons, intensivists in the ICU unit of Hadassah in Karim. She's currently stable, and we can say we're cautiously optimistic about her overall condition.
The driver of the vehicle, a 37-year-old Arab resident of East Jerusalem, was himself lightly injured, as was a passenger in his car. At this stage, it is not entirely clear if the occurrence was a terror attack or merely an accident. One of the reasons for the suspicion that this was indeed a terrorist attack is the location. Across this intersection behind me, for example, is the site of a separate terrorist attack just a few months ago. And in fact, there have been numerous attacks along this road, which essentially divides East and West Jerusalem, since the summer. The driver, a married man with no children, has since been interrogated by the Shin Bet security service, with preliminary results reinforcing suspicion that the incident was premeditated.
My client rejects any illegal involvement, other than claiming it was a regular accident. Reasonable under the circumstances, it was a rainy day.
While the investigation is still ongoing, a 30-day gag order was imposed to prevent further details from emerging.
Yes, and with us right now live from Jerusalem is military correspondent Shai Ben-Ari, standing at the scene in Jerusalem. Shai, you're standing just, I remember this crossroad. I used to study just right next to it in the Mount Scopus Jerusalem Hebrew University. Wadi Joz, the Joz Valley, which is an area of Palestinians, is right over the corner. And basically, this area can pay the price for these kind of acts.
Right. You know, this is the kind of tension that was really more rampant a few months ago. We're talking about really the seam between East and West Jerusalem. As you mentioned, the Wadi Joz is right over here, basically in a Palestinian area of East Jerusalem. The Anata refugee camp is a little bit to the north, as well as the Shuafat refugee camp. That the perpetrator, at least the driver in this incident, is actually a resident of Anata. And whether or not this is actually a terrorist incident will be revealed later on. For the time being, this man who goes by the name of Khalid Tassina spent most of the day in police custody and underwent interrogation by both the Shin Bet and the police. It seems that he will remain in custody at least until Monday, though it's not clear exactly if we will be able to publish any details emerging from that interrogation, as a gag order has now been slapped on it for at least 30 days. We'll have to see how this plays out exactly.
You know, Shai, I want to take you, everybody's checking if it is a possible terror attack, but just 2 weeks ago, let's remind our viewers about the so-called abduction of an Israeli soldier, which didn't happen, and it was a fake. And during the investigation, these really tense hours, the Shin Bet managed to get a confession from a Palestinian that he actually did this incident, but it didn't happen. What are the chances that this is the same case?
Well, what the Shin Bet is officially saying is that following several hours of investigation, they have now, let's say, the suspicion has been reinforced. Indeed, that this could very well be a terrorist attack. It seems that seems to be the position of the security services, though they are refusing to confirm it and to authorize that claim 100%. They're saying investigations still need to go on. But certainly you raise an important issue. When you talk to Palestinian residents of the city, to Arab residents, there's a lot of fear about any sort of incident that could be misconstrued or taken either way. When you talk about traffic accidents or road accidents in this case, Palestinians are very much aware of this fear that anything could be perhaps misunderstood, and that perhaps security services or police forces could react in a very, let's say, rapid way and use force even when it is unnecessary. We're talking about a very sensitive situation.
Yes, definitely, and very complicated one, as always here in the Middle East and as always in Jerusalem. Shai Ben-Ari, thank you very, very much for this. And now to economy. Russian President Vladimir Putin held his annual televised call-in show today, during which he answered questions from the public on a range of issues. And to understand what he answered exactly about is Dr. Alex Coman, value creation expert, Academic College of Tel Aviv. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Did he answer any of the questions in a truthful way?
Well, first of all, he was dressed, so he was not the way he likes usually to show his torso hunting bears. And the surprising thing about the truthfulness of his answers was that he was not concerned at all about sanctions on Russia. And this is 180 degrees from what I was anticipating, because I don't know if you remember in the past, I was very optimistic because of success of sanctions over Iran in the past.
Yes.
And I was happy with the idea that instead of sending tanks to certain areas, etc., we could do it by having computers boycott a country. Now, several weird things happened recently. First of all, the Russian economy is taking off, which is completely the opposite of what we anticipated.
And what we talked about just a month ago or 2 months ago.
Everybody was sure they were heading into the ground. The ruble is worth half of it. By the way, Israel is damaged by that because we export peppers and all sorts of exotic fruit to Russia, and because the economy there was slit, farmers in Israel were damaged severely. But another interesting thing that happened is the fact that Turkey, which used to export gold in the amount of something like $400 million last year, has exported gold for $2.6 billion this year. Now, nobody knows of gold mines in Turkey. So if we want to link this with Iran, which also does not seem to be as hurt by the sanctions as it used to be in the past, apparently just the way Western countries learned how to impose sanctions, other countries learned how to evade the sanctions.
So what, is he a magician? Like we are calling here, like people are calling here Benjamin Netanyahu?
I never thought about Benjamin Netanyahu as a magician, so we don't want to get into that.
No, we don't want to get into that.
But what I figure is that first of all, Russia has many natural resources, and I guess that they found a nice way to export them perhaps to Turkey. Iran, I think, found the same way to export things to Turkey, and as a result, Turkey is doing very nicely and is happy about that. So
it's not the vodka, it's his natural, I think...
It's tonus, it's adrenaline, it's not the vodka.
He is calm in a natural way.
He's the man of my dreams.
Yeah. Oh, Alex Coleman, thank you very, very much for this. We will talk about this next time. Man of your dreams, Vladimir Putin. Returning briefly to Israel's Holocaust Memorial Day, and now to the certain members of the ultra-Orthodox community reject the practice. I-24 News correspondent Uri Shapira tried to find out why.
2 defining minutes unite Israel as a country every year. The moments of silence which follow wailing sirens at 10 a.m. on Holocaust Memorial Day. For 120 seconds, it seems the conflicts between different sectors are overcome as Israelis stop everything to stand in honor of those murdered by the Nazis. Well, almost every Israeli. This image, captured in Jerusalem's Mea Shearim ultra-Orthodox neighborhood, typifies the divisions within this community. While some respect the moment of silence, others ignore it. In some of these cases, as a clear protest against Zionism.
אנחנו חיים פה במדינה, אבל לא חיים פה במדינה. זאת אומרת, אנחנו לא לוקחים חלק בשום דבר, אנחנו לא לוקחים לא כסף מהמדינה, לא פרטי ולא במוסדות הציבור. אנחנו לא משתתפים בבחירות, ואני לא חושב שאנחנו צריכים במשהו שכפי שאמרתי כבר, שלפני 60 שנה כמה חילונים החליטו שצריכים לאחד את עם ישראל בדרכי הגויים, אנחנו צריכים להשתתף בזה.
But rejecting the ritual is not necessarily an act of defiance. According to lawmaker Menachem Eliezer Moses, many in the Hasidic world simply see the practice as non-Jewish.
In the Jewish tradition, these customs of standing at attention were never acceptable. But in order to keep the unity of the Jewish people, the rabbis allowed it, and I believe that 99% of our community respects it.
Moses has experienced the issue firsthand. 70 members of his family were murdered in Auschwitz. For him, commemorating the Holocaust is an ongoing process.
Here in the ultra-Orthodox world, every book, every Talmudic text, every place is linked to the memory of one of the Holocaust victims. We live with the Holocaust the entire year.
Despite these explanations, many secular Israelis find it difficult to accept those who oppose the 2 minutes of silence. While there are many ways to commemorate the biggest tragedy to befall the Jewish people, one clearly remains in dispute.
And amid all the bad news, we can't avoid a nice story out of Toronto. 5-year-old Naama Ouzan has a brother who was diagnosed with Angelman syndrome, a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects about 1 in 15,000 births. When he was 2 years old only. Determined to help find a cure for him, she set up a lemonade stand last spring to raise money and made $25,000. Yes, this little girl. And with me to hear a bit more of their story are Naama, David, and Ruchama Ouzan. Good evening, guys. So Naama, we'll start with you. How did this all start?
It all started when I heard about the researchers and I wanted to help. So my Ima told me about it.
So David and Ruchama, try to tell me, how was this experience for you?
So it's been, the Lemonade Stand initiative was really heartwarming. The community really came out and supported us and started their own stands to raise money for a fund for a cure, which meant a lot to us, to our family, to help Nadav get a cure. And now, now that the world is finding out her story, it's incredible and it's humbling.
Yeah, for me, what's so impressive about this is that a 5-year-old was able to connect the fact that research dollars were needed and she could influence that with a lemonade stand. That, to me, is what's really the truly remarkable thing here that Naama did.
So Naama, tell me, where do you see it going next for you?
International.
Yes, so where can people find you and contribute? Tell me.
Yeah, so we have a hashtag Lemon, capital A, capital I, capital D. So hashtag LemonAid. And we're really hoping that the world will step up, everyone who's been inspired by her story, the children of those families, to make lemonade stands and send all their proceeds from their stands to cureangelman.org to further the research on a cure that is so very possible for our son and everybody with Angelman syndrome.
Yeah, the challenge we're going to set up is really like none other because, there have been challenges in the past that have been kind of cute and have supported a good cause, but this is going to be something where the actual process of running a lemonade stand is so beneficial to kids to get them involved in charity and philanthropy at a young age. So it's both the process of hosting a lemonade stand as well as the cause that here are really special. So this is going to be like something the world has never seen.
Yes, so I think that on you, Naama, it was written the song, The Sweetest Thing. Naama, David, and Ruchama Ouzan, thank you very much for this.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, and now to sports. Yes, and with me right now is the host of Sports Magazine, Jonathan Rankin. Good evening.
Evening, Lucy.
Not such a good evening. First, somebody else.
No, you know what? We're speaking about Aaron Hernandez. Not a good evening for him. Not a good evening for any NFL fan. Just a little explanation. Aaron Hernandez, he was a megastar for the New England Patriots in the NFL, earning $40 million a year. Where do we see him now? In court, where he got his life imprisonment. Life in prison sentence without the option of parole. This is for a murder. In one case, he disliked the friends, the people that one of his friends' brother-in-law was hanging out with. So he killed him. And he will now, instead of being an NFL star, he will spend his life in jail. That is one of just 2 murder cases he's dealing with. There's another one in which he killed people for spilling a drink at a bar. I don't even know how to relate to this. This is a man who had literally, his life was just about to be beautiful.
I don't think that
not.
Even if you will look for an explanation, you will find one.
It's impossible to find,
not
really.
In this case.
Really.
You do things and you pay for them, and it's good. It's a good thing that he is paying for them.
Yes, he did terrible things, and he is paying for them.
Let's go to Michael Phelps.
Yes, on a happier note, Michael Phelps, the most successful Olympian in history, 18-time gold medalist. But ever since the London Olympics, he's had ups and downs. First he said he's retiring, then he said he comes back, then he was found drinking under the influence, so he was banned for 6 months. Now he's back to train and compete with the American team with the aim of going to Rio 2016. Big competition in the U.S. these coming days. Ryan Lochte will also be there, his biggest competitor. Will he be at the Rio Olympics? That's yet to be seen. All the fans always love to see him. Very, very few athletes reach such a level.
He is, really.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. It's like dolphin.
It's incredible. I saw him swimming in London. Insane.
Now, explain to me, what is a
quadruple cork spin? I will be honest and say that I did not know up until this morning what it was, but now I do. Here it is. You spin with your snowboard in the air 4 times. Not once, not twice, not 3, 4 times. Quadruple. There, let's count it. 1, 2, 3. And you think he's going to land, right? No. 4.
Wow.
And it's on. He's the first man to ever do it. Billy Morgan from the UK. No man before has ever done this. Billy Morgan was the first.
I do it like while
I sleep. Well, it's not so easy. Let's go do.
I do it with my eyes closed.
I can't. It takes me. I need some time to say quadruple cork spin.
Quadruple cork spin to you too, and have a great weekend, Jonathan.
You too. Thank you very much.
Yes, a new exhibit in Tel Aviv highlights the work of photographer Robert Capa, who is in the first half of the 20th century, captured some of the most enduring photos to emerge from war. Ayman Siksik has more.
He documented some of the most pivotal moments of the 20th century. Robert Capa was present at nearly every conflict across the globe on either side of World War II. His only weapon? A camera.
Here at the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, a new retrospective explores the works of Robert Capa, internationally recognized as the world's most important war photographer. But titled A Photographer of Life, the exhibition also aims to challenge this view. Let's go inside.
What I'm looking for in this exhibition is to try to think what was interesting Robert Capa as a person. What was motive?
The year 1948 saw the Jewish Capa visit Israel to document the establishment of the state. This exhibition in the heart of Tel Aviv is now bringing Capa's work back to the Israeli public. For curator Raz Samira, this project is also a personal one.
What I want to show that he was very human, and I think that all this you can see from his photograph.
Capa spent 2 years in Israel, covering the story of its founding.
He came several weeks before the declaration of the state, actually, and he felt that it's going to be very hot situation here.
Capa was present at critical moments in Israeli history, holding true to his motto, if your photographs are not good enough, you're not close enough.
He was in the refugee camp, the Ma'abara. He was in Tel Aviv in the first years. He didn't want to be Zionist, but I think that in his photograph you feel that he has a big emotion to Israel.
The Tel Aviv exhibition also features some of Capa's most noted international pieces, such as The Falling Soldier, taken in 1936, depicting the exact moment a soldier was killed in the Spanish Civil War. Controversy surrounded this piece upon its publication, with some claiming it was staged, others that the soldier had tripped. But even for the most knowledgeable of curators, there is always a favorite piece. In this case, the one of 2 people inside a shelter during the Blitz in London.
These 2 old persons sitting, they continue the event of tea time.
Capturing life in the midst of war, Capa produced hundreds of poignant, dramatic works focusing on the individual. And as Samira points out, upon his passing, Capa had the final word, in Hebrew, about the nature of his legacy.
He said in 48, when he was here, that he photographs lives, not war. And on his grave, written in Hebrew, Shalom.
Beautiful. And with me right now is Danny. So I'm about to look at history. I'm going to shut up and you're going to talk about Cuba.
I'm going to talk about Cuba. This is a very exciting week in the relations of U.S. and Cuba. We saw the reapproachment of the 2 leaders, Castro and Obama, meeting for the first time in decades. I'm going to take you back to a time, April 15th, 1959, where Fidel Castro was invited to the United States, not by politicians, but by journalists. This was after his overthrow of the government. And even though he worried politicians, American reporters liked him a lot. But it was very important for President Dwight D. Eisenhower to avoid the visit altogether because he was uncomfortable with his visit.
Oh.
He actually went and played golf.
Played golf?
He went and played golf. He
Why?
did not want to meet with the leader, yes, because it was already starting to form this bad relations. Castro was meeting with the Council on Foreign Affairs. They asked him some very tough questions. He did not like to answer these questions. He got a little testy with them, and he pretty much stormed out of the meeting. It was very fiery times. Before he left, though, he met with the Vice President, Nixon.
Oh.
Nixon thought he could set him straight and kind of lean him away from his, bad ways. Well, that did not actually work out so well, as we could see throughout history. Nixon thought he was very naive about communism, and this started the chain reaction of President Eisenhower ordering the CIA to train Cuban exiles to attack Cuba, which end up being the Bay of Pigs, and leading to the complete disastrous relations of Cuba and the U.S.
I'm trying to understand why sometimes the United States is trying to educate other nations.
It was a very interesting chapter. The U.S. government wasn't sure how far left Castro was going to go. They were clearly mistaken. He went into the Soviet camp, and we had these relations. And it's just kind of ironic that this week, when the relations were kind of destroyed, that this week, they're together again.
Yes, definitely. Danny Swibel, it was good that I shut up. Thank you very much for this.
Thanks,
it was very interesting.
Appreciate it.
We're going out for a small break, 2 minutes, and then we will be back for the daily debate. Tonight we will talk about Israeli politics. It's been a long, long time, and you absolutely, of course, asking why, because not a lot is going on when they are saying that yes, but it's really interesting. Don't go anywhere. 2 minutes.